Happy Women's History Month, and welcome to Season 2 of Get to Know Women in Energy, where we share the stories, ideas, and achievements of women across the energy sector. In this series, we sit down with trailblazers and industry experts who have and continue to pave the way for women in the energy industry. I'm your host, Ebun Adewole-Dickson. I'm joined today by Teresa Waddington, who is the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at LNG Canada. Coming from a family where both her parents and all of her siblings are engineers, it was basically genetically predetermined that Teresa would graduate with an engineering degree, after which she started her career with Shell. Since then, Teresa has worked across projects, commercial, development, maintenance and operations, and HSSE before joining LNG Canada in 2020. Teresa is currently on a mission to turn her dad's oil patch into her daughter's energy garden. This has driven her contribution to shaping the energy garden in Canada, helping to plant and nurture the molecules, electrons, technologies, policies, and workforce that will drive our energy transition. Teresa believes in thinking big, having fun, and that the intersection of creativity and technology will be the ultimate transformational force in our society. Teresa, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Ebun. I'm thrilled to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. Now, before we jump into your career in the industry, we'd love to hear more about your current role at LNG Canada. Could you walk us through your responsibilities and day-to-day?
My responsibilities span government relations, stakeholder and Indigenous relations, internal and external communications, and LNG policy and advocacy. Probably the best part of my job is that I have an incredibly capable and professional team whose expertise really guides the work in each of those areas. One of my favorite aspects of my job is getting to be a spokesperson for LNG Canada and representing the incredible opportunity that Canada has to be a leader in energy transition, both from providing a lower emissions fuel source, but also from building a new workforce for a brand new industry in Canada that reflects the communities in which we operate. So it's all part of my mission to turn my dad's oil patch into my daughter's energy garden, and there's no better platform I could ask for to do that from.
Well, thank you. That's very, very interesting. It seems like you have a lot on your hands in your new role. And I'm sure a lot of people like myself are interested in learning about your career journey. But what interests you about the energy field, and what roles did you have in the past that you believe prepared you for your current position at LNG Canada?
Well, my background's pretty wide ranging. So to be frank, I think all of them help prepare me for what I'm doing right now. So I've got a background in engineering. I've worked in projects, commercial, development, maintenance, ops, health, safety, security, environment, before coming into corporate affairs. And I think across all of those different areas, those experiences inform my perspective on being able to talk about the different aspects of our industry. And my career journey's been really informed by one simple principle, which is every next job should have more of what you love and less of what you hate. And what interests me most about the energy field is that opportunity to work with people on important, impactful, meaningful challenges, as well as the opportunity for deeply creative work. And in every job I've ever held, the most important thing I've done has been joining teams wrestling with huge issues and lending my energy and creativity to finding a way forward. So more than my experience and expertise, the most important thing that's prepared me for my current role has been a willingness to learn from and work with others, reminding myself that I'm strong enough to do hard things when the going gets tough, and really focusing on doing what I love and helping contribute through that kind of innate use of talent into the groups and the teams that I'm thrilled to work with.
Wow, it definitely sounds like you've dabbled in quite a broad variety of interests. And it seems like you've kind of taken the same motto into a new job and kind of applied it to make sure that, you're learning new things and you're also bringing the skills that you used from your past positions. So it's very interesting. Now, outside of your career, you're also an active blogger for the Globe and Mail, where you often discuss your personal and family life. Specifically, you talk about your mission of transforming your father's oil patch into your daughter's energy garden. Could you share the backstory of that motto and how you plan to achieve that goal?
You bet. So I've been refining my personal purpose and mission statement probably for years. Since I was a brand new engineer, wrestling with the options of joining the workforce or living in a van in the ski hill parking lot as my life goals. So from that kind of starting point, I was like, how do I integrate who I am and what I believe in and what I love to do and what I want to do into how I live my life and into my career. So my early iterations of purpose statements were long and winding, lots of kind of general platitudes, but it was at least a start. And it was actually while I was leading a mentoring circle where we were doing an exercise where we would list our values and turn them into mission statements. So picking out core values and picking out core words that resonated and then trying to mash it into a sentence. And that's when I first formulated this articulation. And when I first said it out loud, I'm on a mission to turn my dad's oil patch into my daughter's energy garden, it actually made me really uncomfortable. I spent my entire career walking that line between fitting into my dad's oil patch enough to have the license to change it. And I felt like if I went too hard into this, at what felt like at the time, kind of an aggressively feminist statement on turning my dad's oil patch into my daughter's energy garden, I was worried I'd actually lose my ability to make the change that I wanted to see. But then I practiced sharing it. So I talked to some people I trusted. I got their perspective. And ironically, every time I said it, it resonated as being deeply true. So I love and respect my dad. And I'm so excited for my daughter, regardless of what she chooses to do in facing a more open working world. And I kind of was like, it actually doesn't need to be a detraction from what my dad's oil patch was in all the good senses, while still saying we do need to move and shift to make this a more inclusive and generative space that we're working in. So going back to that mentoring circle that I was leading and also benefiting significantly from, when we met again, we all shared our draft statements, me included, to get feedback. And the feedback that I got was that the statement did rock people a little bit, more than they expected it to. It made others uncomfortable. And I think that's actually a really good thing. So that mission statement sums up my entire career and volunteer efforts. And it's also, I've found, incredibly galvanizing with so many others who are working alongside me to achieve it.
Wow. Thank you. That is very interesting. It definitely seems like you found a way to incorporate your family into your work life and kind of push yourself, use that as a motivator to push yourself to see the changes that you want to make. So while we're on the subject of family, what advice would you give to women who are looking to further their careers while balancing family?
So interestingly, then, this is actually advice my dad has given me consistently throughout my entire life. And it is simply that your job cannot love you back. So I'm gonna add beside that one, always be unafraid. And I do tend to talk about my family in terms of my parents and my kids as well when I talk about the forces that have shaped my beliefs and how the world works. So first, both my parents were working professionals. They're both engineers. So I never considered not having a career or that my partner wouldn't work outside the home. My frame of reference was simply that you both worked. So as a starting point, it actually gave me a little bit of a core kind of basis from which to say, I believe that this is okay. And I believe that this is how it works. And in fact, I didn't even question that until much later on when people were talking to me about, staying home more, which is also a totally valid choice depending on how you want to do this. So I have 3 kids. I've gone through the cycle of having babies, having young kids, and now I have teenagers. And my job has flexed and flowed to accommodate those different life moments. So when I was having babies, I couldn't travel and I didn't want to move. I wanted to do that surrounded by my extended family, taking my maternity leaves where I had a community with which to help. And that identity change of going through having children was a big change for me. And I really had to work through what is this going to mean and how am I going to be both a mom and a career person. But when my youngest was 2, we actually moved. We went to Fort McMurray and then to Scotland, and we went on wonderful adventures as a family. But maybe I'll talk about as kind of a pivotal work-life balance moment. When we moved to Scotland, that was a big move. My husband had to give up his job. He dropped out of a master's program. He was halfway through. We moved our kids away from their grandparents and the close family and the kind of casual love they'd grown surrounded by. It was really scary. And the only way we could do it was knowing that if my marriage or my kids were suffering, I'd just quit. I'd just quit and come home. And I think if I'd handled it the other way, which was potentially not taking a job in case it did cause my relationships to suffer, I think that would have been giving up on myself. And that in itself would have caused strain on my family. My husband and I often talk about that we're here to enable each other. We're not here to hold each other back. So I don't believe anybody, him or me, can give up who they are and still have the relationship flourish. So I guess to make that kind of summarized up, know what's important. Your job can't love you back, and be unafraid to do big things. You can always fix a mistake when you know what matters most.
Wow, that's really, really great advice. Especially, I love the way that you're very detailed in talking about how to manage those struggles. As often we hear that women are supposed to go to the workforce and either choose family or work, and you have decided you found a way to kind of juggle them both, and drop what needs less of your attention and pick up what needs most of your attention. So I think that resonates with a lot of women nowadays. And while we're talking topic of your family and you spoke about your children, we do notice that you do YouTube animations. So I wanted to hear more about the backstory of that. What prompted you to start creating these animations? As was it, part of your journey to being a mother and having young children that you want to teach this with, or what kind of drove you into that path?
It's probably mostly an extension of me being a very strange person. But what specifically got me started on the animating was I was a plant manager managing a gas plant in a marine terminal in Scotland, and we had a major safety incident. And in the course of the investigation and me going, oh my God, how do I prevent this from ever happening again? Doing a lot of learning and reading on human performance, on safety too, and all this kind of evolving safety vernacular and thinking. I realized that my leadership team at the site had not necessarily had the time or the impetus to consume all of this learning and all of this technical detail around safety and all the ways of thinking that was out there. And it got me thinking, how do I start to get people within my team and within my plant a little bit more well-versed in some of this new thinking on safety? So while I was thinking about this, my daughter, who was 11 at the time, had just learned how to animate on her iPad, and she was making these animations of me turning into animals and all these funny things. And so she showed me, I'm like, Mary, show me how to do that. How do I do this? I always kind of like drawing. And so she taught me how to animate. And my first few animations were like 10-second clips of monsters eating my children, which they loved. And then I actually said, wait a minute, I could actually use this skill with this to solve this other problem that I've got in my working world on how do I build a stronger basis for the safety conversation we need to be having. So my first animations were really on human performance principles, and were created in order to start to have better conversations within our teams about how we're going to manage safety on the site. And they've been viewed like over 10,000 times, some of them, which for me, I'm a small T YouTuber. I think that's phenomenal. And I've made quite a series of animations now on D&I, on energy transition, on human performance, and then kind of on whatever interests me. I think if you go check out my YouTube channel, you'll notice that my drawing doesn't seem to be improving, but definitely on the animations, my daughter will occasionally be like, oh, that was good, Mom, you did that really well. So it's still a way for us to connect as well.
Well, you know what, Teresa, from your drawings, you're doing way better than I am. So, and I love the fact that you were able to take something that you did with your family and kind of put it in your work life. And that does tie back into, juggling work life and family life. You're able to combine both to make something new and to start conversations, which is really, really interesting. So now before we wrap up, I do have one more question for you. As diversity and inclusion continues to be a pertinent topic in the industry, what do you think needs to be done to see more of this representation in the energy sector?
That is a great question. I'm going to start with, I worked in 2 places where there was no women's washroom. And when I came, that changed. So we need to show up before we're fully accommodated. And those of us that have the privilege to go first have to balance fitting in with making positive change. So what needs to be done to see better representation of the communities that we live and operate in the workforce, in the energy sector, I think it comes back to being unafraid. So as people who are going forth to make that change, be unafraid to come into that space. Do what matters most, both for your family and for yourself and for your communities and for your industry. And join me in turning our dad's oil patch into our daughter's energy garden.
Teresa, thank you so much for your time. It's been great having you on this episode of Get to Know and hearing your insights. We're looking forward to hearing more about your future endeavors. For those looking to follow Teresa's journey, check out her YouTube channel where she animates a variety of industry-relevant topics. Her YouTube profile is linked in the description. Once again, Teresa, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Ebun.
You can watch the Get to Know Women in Energy series anytime on demand. Visit SPE's Energy Stream site at streaming.spe.org. I'm Ebun Adewole-Dickson. We'll see you next time on Get to Know.